Welcome to Solo Progression, the series where I play through Dungeon Defenders 1 Redux with the goal of beating the crystalline dimension on the hardest difficulty, as well as completing all the achievements. Hey everyone, welcome back to Solo Progression. In the last episode we ended up defeating the Demon Lord, and now we're going to continue on the campaign and start up Act 2 on Insane Hardcore. The first map on Act 2 is Servant's Quarters. Servant's Quarters is probably my least favorite map to play in the game. There is very tight choke points, very close quarters, and the auras you'll see me place are overlapping spawn points. On Insane mode, there is no ogres to worry about, so that doesn't make this map very difficult. It's just sort of a pain to traverse. One thing you might notice when you're playing through the game yourself is that on Act 2 maps, you actually get more mana from chests rather than on Act 1. In Act 1, you only get 40, and on Act 2, you get 70 per chest, which really helps just being able to get more defenses out in time before the round starts. One thing to note too, though, is that on these Act 2 maps, there's always going to be 2 Eternia crystals to defend, and you have to make sure both live till the end of the round, and the maps are bigger. So on this map, you'll also see me impose a lot of my physical beams to block off enemies at the start, use that extra time to build defenses. This really helps on these bigger maps, because you can basically cut off an area, make it so your physical beam is only getting attacked, and then while that's happening, you build the defenses on your monk or on whoever, and just be able to place all your auras, all your towers before the next round starts, and really helps for these harder difficulty maps to stop that timer in the build phase, so you can actually build structures on your characters like your summoner, who has very long cast times during the rounds, and then just building all your other towers as well. You'll see that I don't have pretty much any trouble on this map. The first round is a bit hectic because I just make sure to put all those physical beam downs and then put down my auras during the round. But other than that, Servant's Quarters is a fairly trivial map. It gets harder on the harder difficulties because you have to deal with all the extra mobs that spawn on Nightmare, and there isn't any ogres to deal with, so it makes it a pretty easy map, and we'll be moving on to the next one here shortly. Next up in Act 2, we have Castle Armory. I really like the design of this map. I think the symmetry really adds to it. The nice thing so far with the progression I've made is that my auras are big enough to cover multiple choke points at once. Using less auras means more DU to spend on other heroes such as the Apprentice or the Series EV, and allows us to focus on getting more fireable towers for where the ogres spawn and making sure we have enough defenses to do enough single target damage rather than the AoE damage. The auras aren't quite big enough to cover the south side completely, but it gets the job done for this map. Mages will hit the archers from the side on the south side, something to make note of for when I do this on survival on this map. Though I'm not too sure that the rewards for this on survival are worth it. I know the next map has a very good survival reward, and there's also the survival reward you get for completing all 25 waves, which is pretty much the same on every map for all the campaigns. Now we're not at survival levels yet, but in survival on wave 15 or wave 25, you're able to get a pet on the normal maps. On wave 15, you receive the unique pet from that map, and on wave 25, you receive the giraffe on a treadmill, which we will be going for after our campaign. There's also no wyverns that spawn in Castle Armory, but this is one of my probably favorite maps of Act 2. I wouldn't say it is my favorite map, actually the next map is my favorite, but this one is just one of my favorite maps of the game in general. But that really goes to show how good some of these later maps become, because Servant's Quarters is a dud, but all the other maps on Act 2 are some of my favorite ones to farm. So with that, that's pretty much going to wrap up Castle Armory. You'll also notice when I'm playing these maps that I'm placing a bunch of archer units kind of all over the place. This is because I have the extra minion units to use, and it's nice to have a contingency plan in case something gets through. But anyways, on to the next map. The next map in the game is Hall of Court. This is definitely my favorite map of Act 2, one of my favorites in the game to farm. The survival rewards on this gives you the Genie pet, which is one of the pets I am going after. So on Hall of Court, I make sure to upgrade my pet damage a little bit and prep for the next boss on Throne Room, in the next map, and I started investing points into Monk Hero Boost for more DPS and heals from it. You have to be careful on Hall of Court because the wyverns can sneak through the middle, right where the auras kind of don't cover, and attack your Eternia Crystal. I use archers to cover any holes in the defense as well as more fireball towers behind each physical beam. This is pretty much the same setup I will be using for survival mode, except I will be placing down a tower buff beam tower, which will increase the damage of my towers that I place on top of it. But for the most part, this setup where I have fireball towers, have archers next to them, the physical beam, reflection beam, all to make sure all my damage is mitigated going one way. Really helps with this map. It's very easy to set up, one of my favorite ones to farm on survival mode on the harder difficulties, and we'll be farming this map actually once we complete the campaign because we can get the genie, and the genie is one of the best pets to get in the game. Now, actually, when I'm playing this map on campaign, I did mess up a little bit. My defenses are a little bit too close to my physical beams, which causes an issue when there is an ogre and does that swipe attack that can still reach the other towers behind it. This isn't that big of a deal, though. This is because we have tower boosts, which can heal our towers and auras and defenses, and we have the strengthening auras, which lowers the damage output of the mobs that are hitting it. Now, that's kind of like one of the things I love about progressing in Dungeon Defenders, is that if my aura ranges were bigger, I'd be able to get away with using only 2 aura stacks instead of 4. This would save us a total of 26 DU if I were to use all 3 auras in a stack for both stacks. So that's just a ton of DU you can be saving on some of these maps when you have these extra ranges. So you don't have to worry about placing down multiple towers. There's less towers to upgrade. The auras are such a valuable tool to upgrade as well because the damage scale is very good on them, as well as it increases their health so you don't have to repair them as much. But that's pretty much going to wrap up Hall of Court here. Pretty simple map, pretty easy. I like how where the Wyvern spawn, you kind of have you can have up to 8 choke points if you want, or you can just dumb it down to 4 choke points, which I really like in this game. It's just sort of kind of nice to just have it so all the enemies are coming in at once, which you'll start to see on these bigger maps. Anyways, on to our next map. But before going to the next map, we will be checking out our stats and upgrading gear to boost my Monk's hero boost levels up. Also checking damage and how much my healing aura heals to make sure I don't die during this fight. If I were to die during the fight, it would really be a setback because I would have to pretty much wait for my defenses to either die or to kill the boss itself, which would just take a long time either way. And on hardcore, you don't respawn, so I gotta make sure I don't die. So this kind of brings me to my next point of how there's some things that do bother me about Dungeon Defenders 1 that is fixed in later games. One of the main things is that you lose on Dungeon Defenders 1, you have to restart the entire map, which is fine, except the new games let you just restart that wave and you kind of just keep all your progress. Dungeon Defenders 1, you're spending a lot of time just placing down towers, upgrading towers, and you're just waiting between each round to finish. And if you were to die at the end of it, it's all for naught. That said, I do prefer Dungeon Defenders 1 over the other games just because of the simpler system, but also very flexible in how you play. And with all that said, I believe we're done checking our stats. I think we're looking pretty good, and I decide to go into the next map, the Throne Room. The Throne Room is most likely the map I've played the most. It's fun to farm, easy to set up, and with bigger auras you can get away with 3 aura stacks rather than 5 like I use in this one. You might have noticed I'm running into issues with my Series EV, specifically the movement speed and casting rate. I'm finding it difficult to collect all the mana in time while also being able to place all the physical beams I need for my Series EV, so something to look out for is to increase that movement speed on my Series EV as well as the cast rate. Another thing you will notice is that I'm using a ton of DU just on my aura stacks. This is again one of those progressions that I really do like about this game, is that right now I'm using 65 of my 100 allotted DU on just my aura stacks, whereas if I had bigger auras I could use 26 less than. I'd only be using 39 DU, which would save me 26 DU. Simple math. Another issue I ran into is that I placed my archer minions too close to the physical beams, leading them to get attacked on some of the choke points. And I tried to get a fireball tower in each lane, but since I didn't have enough DU to do this, I opted not to use one in the north lane due to no ogre spawning up there. Though, this lane had issues with some mages over there, just kind of chilling in the back at some point. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much as an ogre actually breaking through. You've also might have noticed that I've been stacking a bunch of hard-hitting and auras on the left side, specifically another healing aura, as well as, I think, another strength drain aura. This is because the boss will be affected by the strength drain, as well as the healing aura to heal me while I'm fighting the boss, so I don't have to worry about dying. This is why I was checking beforehand to make sure my healing aura would be enough to compensate, along with my hero boost from the monk, which also heals you. Having multiple healing effects really adds up, as well as having mages as well that you can go back to that will heal you for a little bit each time as well. That all being said, the Throne Room is not very difficult of a map, but getting to the boss is where we can definitely have some troubles. I've definitely lost many runs to the boss just from not being strong enough. So I was very worried about just getting instantly killed and just having to wait for the boss to die or restart or hopefully die. And yeah, so hopefully the boss goes a lot smoother for us and we'll get to it. Behold the mighty low resolution goblin mech. This boss has a couple of things you might want to look out for. It has a kind of a spin cleave attack that just does a good amount of damage, as well as it can shoot out rockets that will hurt you and your defenses. My plan is to drag the boss towards the auras as to not take as much damage as the strength drain, get help from my defenses that are set up as well, and help from the healing aura as well. Once I was able to get the goblin mech over to the auras, I had a very simple time with this boss. I might have over-prepared even as well, because the boss just wasn't doing any damage to me, which definitely helps because I had strength drain aura up as well as upgrades on that and the healing aura. Having extra points in hero boost really helped though, for multiple reasons, though I did have a scare or two with the Dark Elf Warriors. I believe they got a few hits on me as well, and I got really low, but the hero boost plus the healing aura healed me up a good amount. And I was able to beat the boss and got some really nice loot from this boss, but we have yet to level 60 to cash in on it, but we are close. That said, we are super close on all of our characters to level 60. We have level 59 on Leon, level 55 on Keel and Depth, and level 56 on Silas. As soon as we hit 60, we'll be looking for godly pieces and making sure we get set bonuses if possible. Getting set bonuses don't matter too much on godly pieces of armor because they don't stack along with mythical pieces. So if you have a godly piece and a mythical piece of the same type, so like say godly plate, mythical plate, and you have that whole set on, it doesn't actually give you a set bonus. Whereas having a full mythical set or a full godly set will give you that set bonus. So we'll be looking for set bonuses, but we're not going to worry about it too much because we know the armor at level 74 will be a lot better than the ones at level 60. But the ones at level 60 right now are very useful for just completing the game. And it's pretty clear to tell that we will be hitting level 60 and possibly even level 70 at the end of Act 3. But for now, we have completed Act 2. Probably my favorite act in the game. And in the next episode, we'll be completing Act 3 and the rest of the campaign. So, thanks you guys for watching, and see you next time.